So welcome to our Tuesday night. This is week one of a new subject. And I hope and I pray that it's a subject that's worthy of spending some time with. Tonight is an introduction. My thoughts are that we would kickstart your brain, kickstart your hearts, maybe stir some interest in all of this. As we go through, especially at the tail end of our slides, there's going to be a lot of questions. When we come to the end, the intention is that those questions may connect with you. So I want you to think about each slide. You certainly can take pictures or screenshot anything that you see, print screen anything you see, so that you remember or keep this. But the key is that we're going to try to have a guided discussion afterwards concerning tonight, but also remember tonight is an introduction to the next couple weeks, and so maybe the discussion will help guide us in the direction we go in the next couple weeks. I'm going to push through these. I didn't see anybody brand new tonight that doesn't need any of this, but I will pause just for a moment in case you don't have some of this information and may need it. I would again tell everybody, if you don't have a place to land on Sundays, we Zoom all of our meetings. Even though we're in person most of the weeks, we also Zoom. And so you're always invited here. If you have nowhere else to go in person, we would love to have you. All right. Week one of our new subject, experimental. Experimental. Defining what an experiment is: a scientific test or a scientific procedure, which involves a series of actions that are performed and then observed, carefully noted what is being observed, all with the purpose of making a discovery, testing a hypothesis, learning more about whatever it is that's in question, and ultimately to demonstrate its truth and prove it as a known fact. Experiment. Question tonight is, are experiments even important? And if so, what makes experiments so critical? So let's first think about the process. What takes place with an experiment in its most stripped down version? So not to get too thick in all of this, just to keep it on kind of a facade level, but certainly just defining accurately. They begin as an idea, hopefully a new thought, and at the very least, maybe even the very most at the same time, a theory. That theory is formulated by the dreamer. The dreamer formulates that into a hypothesis. A hypothesis is unproven. So while that statement is unproven, it demands evidence to tell whether or not such assertions are accurate. So in other words, one can't just claim their idea is truth. One must prove their thoughts are true. I believe that mankind depends upon the experimenters for multiple causes. I confess to you that these next three slides probably took me more time for this week than any three slides have ever taken me. I went through hundreds of experiments that were listed, many of them prioritized, and then trying to bring some to you that may at least connect with you so that we understand the importance of experiments through history. Aristophanes, back 275 years before Jesus Christ, accurately 276, 275 years before Christ, measured and recorded the Earth's circumference. And by the way, with such accuracy that those results still hold true today. That's impressive. Prior to that, there were still questions about what the shape of the Earth was, let alone finding the circumference. Galileo said that there is something called gravity. So he went to the top of the Tower of Pisa and dropped different weighted balls, similar in size, but different weighted, and would drop them 2 at a time, all of them reaching the ground simultaneously, regardless of weight, proving gravity. 1589. Roemer measured the speed of light by using, listen to this, by using the motion of Jupiter's satellites. 1665, Robert Hooke, through a microscope, confirmed the existence of cells. In that same time period, crossing over 1665 from, or excuse me, just after 1676 to 1674 to 76, excuse me, Leeuwenhoek found microorganisms using Hooke's same tool, the microscope. All of these we know as fact. Prior to that, no one knew that they were for certain experiments. James Lind in 1753 had 2 groups of people on a ship, contained on a ship. And one group consumed what seemed to be some bad citrus fruit. The other one did not. And he identified scurvy and identified the process of containing disease, controlling disease. How ironic, just 2 and 3 years after we've had our own controlled disease here in the state, in the world, but certainly we experience it here in the States. More experiments, not always just in science. Edward Jenner created the first vaccine. He tested smallpox against cowpox, found that there was a need to get rid of this, and invented through experiments the first vaccine. Mendel identified genetics by testing a garden pea, which confirmed the fundamental laws of dominant versus recessive genes. Those who are a little further along, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Darwin identified natural selection, demonstrating the evolutionary process. Pasteur identified spontaneous generation as disproved, which means that living matter cannot come from non-living matter. He used S-shaped flax to prevent spores from contaminating broth, and he undid someone else's experiment. All of these critical to moving forward. Pavlov, we all know about the bell with the dog, all about human conditioning, modifying behavior. Building upon his findings, Watson and Rayner went further with Pavlov's studies, and it was more defined human conditioning. So we've moved now into psychology. Ash found about conformity. I spelled it wrong. It's conformity is what this is saying. This talked about conformity, that group pressure, and boy, is this so apparent in so many ways today. Group pressure can persuade people, even when opinions are wrong in obvious ways. Pressure can persuade people to lean in on that conformity. Skinner found that there are 2 ways to condition. An operant conditioning is either the positive or negative. A lot of people call that the carrot or the stick. He found that both were important findings. Both affected people. Both conditioned behavior. Harlow studied baby monkeys using cloth surrogate mothers, or even wire surrogate mothers. And what they did is they separated these baby monkeys from their mothers. And they found those that never had any mother were unhealthy. Same study, 2 different groups. Again, a controlled study. Took other baby monkeys and gave them surrogate mothers, and they held them. I don't know if anyone has ever seen these videos. They're extraordinary. Held these surrogate mothers to them, and they were much healthier. And then Milgram found that human obedience can be affected even through severity, meaning forced obedience. So all of these, very, very important. Maybe you know some, maybe you know none, maybe you know all. But all of these just experiments in history that have affected all of us, whether we know this or not, they've affected us all. So experiments have been utilized to document and confirm findings in multiple sciences: astronomy, biology, chemistry, economics, political science, psychology, history, geology, physics, sociology, anthropology, neuroscience, and on and on and on and on it goes. And when theories are proven as sound, factually sound, everything's affected going forward. And everything is normally affected immediately. These adaptations take place within possibly the specific science, but the creation and development of these new realities are normally accepted universally. Meaning, I, who have no touch in chemistry, accept through the factual experimentation of somebody else wiser than I, smarter than I, more focused than I in that particular science, and the rest of us normally lean in. So experiments are critical in our existence. So tonight, we're using this fundamental basis to move forward and cross over to our science, if you will. Is there some carryover in thinking to spiritual life? Is there some type of corresponding application? Can we apply this in the same way to our spiritual walk? Maybe a more direct question for you is, how does experimentation fit into spirituality? If it does at all, if you accept that at all. And if you're leaning in with me after those three questions, let me ask you this. Who is the definitive spiritual scientist? What or who is the definitive spiritual experiment? Who is the one doing the theorizing spiritually? And who or what is the resulting spiritual evidence? Again, remember, tonight is to kickstart the next couple of weeks, but to kickstart your brains, your hearts, into thinking. I'm just trying to be provocative and stir some thinking up tonight. Asked more succinctly, tonight's theme is everything an experiment? Is everything an experiment? I suggest opening your minds, opening your hearts, and at least considering. What does the title even mean? Is everything an experiment? How far does this thought actually go? Within you individually, within me? Exploring, is everything an experiment? A little further, using dad jokes, because it's just a sickness that I suffer from. Let's experiment with the theme. So considering the theme, I'm going to ask you a series of questions intending to stir, as the word says, to stir up the gift within you, to stir up your thought process, to stir up your thinking as we go into the next couple weeks. Is everything an experiment? Based upon that, who was the original scientist? What was the original hypothesis? Is the original experiment still continuing today? Is life nothing more than an experiment? Is all of creation God's ultimate experiment? Are each of us God's individual experiments? I'm smiling slyly because I love that you're looking at these and wondering, what does that mean? What is he saying? What do I think about this? How do I answer that? If so, are we succeeding or are we a succeeding or failing experiment? Is each stage of our lives a singular experiment? Is every generation a new experiment? If singular experiments, what to date has been proven? You personally, are you trying to find your own answers? Have you found any answers so far? And if so, are any, or even are all of your answers fact-based? Experiments must be proven by fact-based answers. I'm interpreting none of these questions. I'm leaving that all to you. I'm just here to stir you up. Is faith a theory-based experiment? Is love a theory-based experiment? Is joy a theory-based experiment? Is peace a theory-based experiment? Our theme tonight is everything an experiment? So I'm giving you some examples that fall under quote unquote everything. Is power a theory-based experiment? Is success a theory-based experiment? Is popularity a theory-based experiment? Is wealth a theory-based experiment? Is everything an experiment? Is virtue a theory-based experiment? Is impurity a theory-based experiment? Is hatred a theory-based experiment? And if so, or if not, is forgiveness a theory-based experiment? As I've said, tonight is just to stir you up, just to get you thinking, just to understand that our theme, experimental, over the next couple weeks is going to deep dive into some of these subjects. Find out whether or not each of us are on some trek, either in an experiment, as an experiment, experimenting ourselves, all under the question, is everything an experiment? All right, having said all of that, let's open up for some discussion. And maybe that'll help guide, not yet, maybe that'll help guide us in our discussion tonight. So staying on point, 2 questions. What connected with you tonight, or what resonated with you tonight? And number 2, is there anything you'd like to explore over the next couple of weeks in this study? Given the slides you've seen, maybe something came up. When you first saw the title experimental, maybe something stirred in your mind. So you can also help frame out the next couple of weeks if you have any thoughts. So again, if we can stay on point, what off the slides connected with you, or what did those slides create to resonate with you and have you thinking, and is there anything you'd like to explore?